And we are recording with Mr. Jack Pitts, episode 895, Saturday, September 3rd, 2:37 p.m. Eastern time. Wait, so 895. So 400 episodes ago, I had on Dr. Malone, episode 495, which would eventually lead to my downfall and me getting banned from YouTube. But I've told that story a million times and no one wants to hear it again, and I don't want to tell it again. So with that, Jack, please introduce yourself, my man.
Well, before I introduce myself, 895 episodes, a lot of episodes. How long you been doing this?
December 12th, 2019.
Oh, wow.
So less than 3 years. Less than 3 years. About what's October, November, December, 12, 24, 31 months.
Wow. And the
Right.
podcast is basically your name, but is there an overall theme or it's just kind of no?
Whoever I talk to.
And where do you get all your audience from? Like beside now that you're not on YouTube?
Um, People that graciously share, and that is a direct call out to anybody listening. Please share this because I'm banned from iTunes and YouTube. I think because it's such like a diverse, I can't lock into one thing. I get to I'll love it, and then I'll wring the sponge dry, and then I'll be finished with it. So like I'll go completely into like psychedelic research or at nuclear bunkers in the Cold War or whatever. And then when I get it done, I'm finished. And I can't even stick with like, well, maybe you should do everything in the Cold War. Like, no, I have to get finished and now I'm doing you and we're going to talk about crypto or anything else. And then tomorrow I'm going to have on another Delta Force member. And then Monday I'm going to have on a CIA analyst. I have to, if I'm not constantly, if I'm not interested in the person that I'm talking to and the subject we're talking about, then the podcast will fail. And so there is no topic. It's whatever sparks my interest.
I gotcha.
So
That's cool. It's nice and diverse. Yeah, I think we have a lot in common. I mean, if you're interviewing Delta Force, I've never dealt with Delta Force, but I've dealt with SEALs when I was in the submarine Navy.
I've
And
had
then
on nuclear submariners.
Submariners, yeah.
Yeah.
I was based out of San Diego on fast attack submarines,
Okay.
Los Angeles class, which is now there's probably not a lot of those left, if there's any, but that's what I was on. As the USS Houston, the Star, probably the only submarine that starred in a movie, The Hunt for Red October.
All right. Yeah, I
And
had on a guy that I don't know what the class is, but I mean they only carried SLBM nuclear warheads.
yeah, they're called boomers or SSBN.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the big guys. They just kind of float around and they don't do very much that's interesting, but their job is to hide
It's
and
it's
sit offshore of places.
it's mutual assured destruction. You can get all our bunkers, you can get all our B2 spirits, you can get all our aircraft carriers. We're gonna poke our head up 3 months later and nuke your hometown.
Yeah, and the great thing is, if the nuclear reactor goes bad, it's probably at least in the middle of the ocean. It goes right into the seabed, and you don't have to worry about it too much. I mean, there'll probably be a little bit of repercussions, but it's a small reactor, so it's not going to do it. It's not like Fukushima, which is
Yeah.
now pumping. I don't know. I don't know how many gallons. It's something in the tens of thousands of gallons or hundreds of thousands of gallons that it's just sitting in tanks, and they're building new tanks like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're talking about releasing all the tank water into the Pacific. So
That's good.
I don't think
Oh,
China's too happy about that,
yeah,
or Russia, to be honest.
yeah. There's a cool thing about nuclear reactors on subs in that you're just in the biggest heat sink possible. You're in 70% of the earth. Just
Yeah,
ice
exactly.
cold water. Like you can't, there is no bigger heat sink. There couldn't be one. It is the big. So, but before we go way off into the weeds on that, which we can do, you and I chatted the other day and had to reschedule, but we started talking about something that I actually hold very like near and dear to my own mind. I can't really put a word on it, but you said the more I was talking about, I've done all these episodes, talked to all these people, and I think you asked me like how has that changed like my view, and really it's been the ancient whatever phrase, the more I learn, I realize I know nothing. And You agreed and said, you do start to see the same patterns again, right? It's whether talking to you or talking to an artist or talking to a power lifter or talking to a Delta Force guy. You start to see the same patterns of like self-discovery, trial and tribulation. You go and you get the reward, and what lessons do you learn? You start to see the same. What I always use the analogy of, I have 5 apples, I give you one. How many apples do I have? 4. I have 5 bananas, I give you one. How many bananas? Where it's math. Different things. I have 5 Ferraris, I give you one. But you're learning the same. You're learning addition and subtraction. But you said there is a neat thing. You're older than I am. You said there is a neat thing where you start to recognize the patterns, but it's not just oh, there's a neat pattern. You go, well, here's a blueprint. It seems to work across all fields. If you use that pattern, you can use pattern recognition and extrapolation. What's coming in front of me? I know if I hit this speed bump at 90, it's going to hurt my balls. After 10 times, stop hitting the speed bump at 90 or whatever. In middle school, I decided I wanted to play basketball starting in 7th grade. All my friends have been playing since kindergarten. I practiced nonstop for a year, every day, all day. By 8th grade, I was one of the best. High school, I wanted to start lifting weights. I remember seeing the seniors, and I was like, they're all jacked, and I was like, I want to do that. Took me 4 years. I got there, and got to college. Was a stupid frat boy for my first year. Realized I wanted to be a doctor, and already I was starting to go, wait, I was really skinny and I became a weightlifter. I couldn't dribble a ball, and then I got a pretty good, 3-pointer by the time I was like 14. What if I just worked all day, every day for 4 years? And I went from a C student to scored in the top 4 percentile on the MCAT nationally.
Nice.
I started to take all those pieces of data by the time I was about 23, right after I graduated college in December 2013. I had done some mushrooms and had the revelation that I didn't want to be a doctor. But at that point, I had realized, like, okay, hold on. Like, basketball's one thing. Weightlifting, okay, that's cool. I was like, I just got in a medical school where 15,000 people applied and 100 people got in. So I was like,
and by the way, getting into medical school is not easy. Just for anybody that
oh,
thinks that's like, oh, well, you applied, so you got in.
no,
No, there's not a lot of medical schools, and if you want to go there,
no, not easy.
most people are turned away from the last place university where you can be a doctor. They are turned away in droves from the last place medical school.
It is a culling process that makes Mother Nature blush. So I realized then, right after I graduated, that I wanted to be my own boss doing what I love. But unlike basketball or weightlifting or medical school, where I had a goal, this time I had a goal, but I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So it was actually kind of a little too arrogant and ballsy. Lost my brother to suicide soon after. So it's this whole cavalcade of shit. Had to move home, like I was telling you, and everybody on the podcast knows. Finally, starting the podcast in 2019, I did a couple, and I just kind of like, it was like a shoe that fit right. I did like 5 episodes, and I was like, there's something here. There's a thread. And I was like, there's no way these episodes are an hour each. They take so much time. And I started to look back, and I was like, well, hold on. Like, it's not going to happen today. But I was like, what if I just give myself like a 5-year goal? Like, how far could I go? And the last thing you talked about was you start to have pattern recognition, but then do you have the balls to act on it? You know it's coming. Basketball, weightlifting, medical school. Are you going to jump? You know that the water's not going to kill you. Are you going to jump off the high dive? And I jumped, and I went for it, and the reward has been better than anything I could have ever imagined. I'm my own boss.
I'm glad you're getting a reward already, because the next part of that is you got to have the balls to jump, and then you have to have the endurance to survive, because it's like,
Okay.
you jump into rock and roll when the electric guitar becomes popular, and maybe you're existing in the time of the Beatles, but maybe you're just not popular. You keep at it for like 7 years, and then music changes, and you're like, man, I always kind of thought it was too happy-ish type music, and I'm a kind of dark person. Then the 70s come along and you're like, oh my God, this is ideal for me. And you become, Ozzy Osbourne or something. And no, the world wasn't ready for you in 1956, but in 1970, the world's ready for you. And Jim Morrison and all these guys. And so there's almost like if you are really into it, that helps you endure all the time, all the part where you're not popular, you're not like people don't care what you're doing. And then all of a sudden the world sees what you see. And then when those two things align, it's like magic. And people think, oh, well, that guy just, he just became popular or whatever. He made money or whatever you did that you measure success by, or he got smart or whatever. They just think it happened overnight. And you're like, no, at first I had to take the leap, the balls to take the leap. And then second, everybody hated what I was doing for 3 years, except for me. I just kept doing it because I really loved it. And then like in year 4, boom, magic happened. I have no idea how it happened.
And there is now we are off to a perfect continuation of the conversation the other day. So sorry for that ramble early on, but I wanted to lay it down for everybody listening. And that's kind of where I am now, right? So I don't think I've told you this, but I had started in December 2019, still living with my parents, working at a liquor store, really just like 30 years old working at a liquor store. Like, what am I fucking doing? Like every day I'm like, I could have a white coat. I could be a doctor. And, but in college, after my freshman year, my sophomore year, I started working at a bar and was studying all the time. And then I quit the job at the bar and took out student loans, and I studied twice as much. And I went from like a B student to like a high A, like 98, 99, top, top, top. And so extrapolating on that almost 10 years later, summer 2020, I put out an episode. It's like episode 120 or something, where I kind of just went on this whole spiel that I just told you, basketball, weightlifting, medical school, and was like, I need money to do more episodes. Like, my parents are retiring, they're kicking me out as well as they should, and I need money. And it's like, if anybody wants to like pay me for a couple of years, I was like, it took 3 years to get in med school. I need 3 years of expenses. Put that out there, and people were commenting like, you finally lost it, man. Like I'm sitting there with 100 episodes above my parents' garage. My voice is echoing. I'm on a shitty webcam with bad lighting and a horrible microphone. And I'm like, will somebody pay me for these podcasts? Some dude found me on Reddit watching some of the Delta Force episodes. And he was like, I love your podcast, man. We started kind of like going back and forth. And he was like, dude, I've been listening to Rogan forever. And he's like, I'm on board with yours. He's like, I think yours is sick. And he'd be like, you need to put out more episodes. And every day I'd be like, dude, I love the adoration. My ego loves it. But I was like, I work at a liquor store. I live above my parents' garage.
Right.
I'm fat and I'm a loser. Like, I need to. And finally, one day he asked me, he said, like, have you ever thought about investors? And I looked up to the sky and I was like, thank you. We started talking. So we set up a contract where I own a little more than half, and he is paying for 3 years of living expenses.
Nice.
In April 2024, my funding runs up, and then no matter what happens from now to the end of time, he gets a cut of all future revenue. And if it fails, it fails. I don't have to pay him back. And so now there's, like you said, am I nuts? Am I nuts? Am I nuts? Yes. But someone, a wealthy guy who's invested before, saw something. And that was like my first pat on the back. Got banned from YouTube about a year later. But the bigger guests kept coming back. Dr. Malone, Delta Force guys. I've interviewed Charlie Duke, who walked on the moon 3 times.
Cool.
They're starting to go more and more. More and more people, I hope, are seeing what I'm seeing. I'm like, there's something here. And you're kind of confirming that for me, that keep going. You're going to still feel insane for a while. But as someone that has gone through these steps and further, what should I expect next? If you can look into your crystal ball for me.
Well, it's kind of like podcasts are pretty hot right now, but they're not really monetized all that well, other than the very top podcasts are monetized extremely well, like you mentioned, Rogan. probably number one. He's probably like the old Howard Stern of
Yeah.
radio. He's the Howard Stern of podcasting, so he can do whatever he wants. But um, I think you're still in a tailwind there where you the monetization of podcasts is still growing. More money's coming in. It's just that it may not look that way because the podcasts are getting big, meaning there's a lot of podcasts. So it's just a question of inventory of podcasts versus the amount of money going into the advertising. And so you're in this survival battle, which, along the theme that you originally introduced, which was, how do you have the sand to get into this new thing when you could be a doctor, which is like kind of an old thing, or a lawyer, which is also an old way of, making decent salary, but you're in this new thing. And the problem with the new thing is there's just usually a lot of competition early. And so then it just progresses into, well, can you survive? Because there's plenty of people that have already canceled their podcasts, right? So there's attrition, and you just have to keep plugging away and learning. And just, I think you've already gotten there, because if you've already gotten financing into 2024, you've given yourself a lot of leeway to learn what works. And so you can now, with 895 pods, you can look back and go, you can actually start doing some triage and saying, all right, well, it's getting pretty close to April 2024.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do now? And then you look back and you go, well, I don't know, let's just assemble some data. What were my top, I don't know, 10% of my podcasts? And then you put those together and you might see a theme like, okay, maybe I should only be doing military podcasts because my financing came from a Delta Force guy. They love that content. Maybe they don't love the other stuff, psychedelics, who knows? But you'll find something. In other words, if you just keep plugging away at it, you'll learn. And it's just the hard part is to keep enduring the, semi-success that you might be having, and then just keep finding inspiration to keep going. And that seems to be a reoccurring theme. I saw it. I did a history of beer, which I went on a Google map and I found all of the original breweries in the United States, and actually some of the other countries too, but usually just in the New World. So I think I kept it to North and South America. And the theme that I found was that when something gets hot, like beer, which was due to German immigration into the Americas, and Germans just bring their beer, and in every town there's a German guy that's like, well, nobody's making beer, so let me do that. And he sets up a little beer hall, and everybody in the town starts drinking that beer. And then there's enough of a market for it where he gets 5 competitors in each town. Next thing you know, America has 3,000 or 300 breweries, and there's just too many of them. And then by the time I hit my childhood, there's like, kind of 4 major ones, and all the little ones that have beat out all the guys in their town. In my town, it was Philadelphia. There was a beer called Schmitz, and everybody was gone. Wertlieb's had gone bankrupt. So in Philadelphia, there was probably 20, 50, maybe even 100 breweries, and it was down to 1. And that one even died in the 80s, I believe. But the point is that then Budweiser, Miller, and Coors, who we all still know, they kind of won nationally. And it got down to this tiny, tiny little amount, but they were ginormous companies, right? Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, Coors, Miller, they become mega companies. And if you think about it, if there was 3,000 breweries 100 years ago, and then in 1985, there was kind of just like 3 main ones making money, what does that tell you? It's an endurance it's not only a marathon, it could be a marathon that lasts several generations. I think Yingling, which is the brewery in our oldest, they're the oldest brewery, and they're in Pottsville, PA. If I showed you what Pottsville looked like, and you may know, it would not impress you. It's a nice little industrial town, but they're now the biggest thing in Pottsville. they're the oldest brewery in America. And they survived. I think I listened to a podcast where one of the great granddaughters came on who was still involved, and she said she was something like 7th or 8th generation Yingling. So that's how long this stuff can go. And it can survive your great grandchildren if you set it all up right. But think about you now. You're in this early thing. and you're what, in year 3, and it seems like you've gone a really long time. That's a lot of podcasts, and yet your podcast could go until you're a gray-haired man.
Mm,
Right? If that's what you love to do, you could be doing this until you're dead.
yeah. And for clarification, the investor guy isn't Delta Force. He's a business guy, huge fan of the Delta. He saw a Delta Force podcast.
Oh, I see. I got
Yeah,
you.
I know, huge fan of him. I actually got to like introduce him and stuff, so that was his spoils of war. But yeah, it's the endurance again. It's I think weightlifting and medical school helped with that, right? They each took weightlifting took like 5 years, medical school took like 3 years. You can't get all psyched up and be like, we're doing 10 episodes a day. I've gone on streaks where I'll do 3 a day for a week. It's 21 episodes. You're like, that barely moved the needle. It's no. Do 1 episode a day, maybe a little more than one a day. You do like, I don't know, like 8 a week. You create a sustainable thing. You go, we gotta just, it's not next week. It's, I keep data. You said data. So starting on December 12th, 2019, I went across YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Spotify, everything that it's on, and all the metrics: subscribers, total views, total view time, whatever it is. On YouTube, it was likes. On Rumble, it's rumbles. It's, you can see how many individual ones you have. And I, every single day on the treadmill, it takes about 5 minutes. I do it when I'm walking. I fill out all the data points manually. And so I have an Excel spreadsheet that goes from column A to column AZ. So it's 52 columns.
Hmm.
And I'm at, I mean, I'll pull it up right now. What am I at? What's today at? So daily update. And there are days I missed. Today is September 3rd, 2022. Today is line 911. It's I don't know if it's popping up on there,
Hey,
but
where'd you get the app? Oh, is that just a spreadsheet?
Excel spreadsheet, yeah. And it's there's a cross,
Unbelievable.
just all things. And what I do, and I did it last night, is whenever you start to, you're like, okay, April 2024, you're like, it's not that far away. Or you're feeling like, what am I doing? I'm just treading water. With weightlifting, you go back and find like a picture from like a year ago, and you look
Yeah.
at it and you were like, oh, all right. It's, you look at the GPA a year ago and you go, oh, I was struggling to get through general chemistry, and now I'm like breezing through organic chemistry. You're like, okay, I'm getting better. Just last night I was looking at it. September 2nd, 2021. I had just gotten kicked off YouTube, so I had 300 subscribers on Rumble. Now I'm at 11,900.
Wow.
I had just broken, actually, in a couple days, it will be a year that I've just broken 10,000 downloads on Spotify. Now I'm at 150,000. And I think I had maybe had like 100,000 views total on Rumble. And I think I just broke 3 million. So you look at the data and you go, all right, so it is growing. So just keep doing what you're doing. It's an endurance run. It's like what Terrence McKenna said. The problem of life isn't finding the answer, it's facing the answer. I know what the answer. How do you build muscle? Spoiler alert, go to the gym until you're in pain and then keep going. Sorry. It's just keep going. And so, and then you can kind of get into the nitty gritty. You can go, all right, so keep going. Can we refine that? Which guests bring in the most? And then you can do like a cool thing. It's almost like chemistry. You go, do you start combining the guests? Do you start making weird hybrid episodes? And those do spectacularly. And so right now it is sort of settling in more so in my mind. It's like, this isn't happening in 3 years. This isn't happening in 5 years. But if you stick to it, it's going up exponentially, which is sort of kicked into the survival mode. So I live way below my means. I'm not making a whole lot, but I try to live at like 50% of that. And now I've just been squirreling away some. So now I have my own funding that's like breaking in case of emergency. So if April 2024 doesn't come around, I've scrolled away about 12 months. So now I can push it back to April 2025.
Oh, nice. Now you're
And
talking.
if it's growing exponentially, every year, at the end of the year, I'll look back at the previous year and say, I have now, this year is responsible for 90% of all views. It's happened every year where at the end of the year, the new year is now worth about 9 times more than all the other ones combined.
Wow.
So if I get to April 2024 and it's still cruising, I mean, I might only need another year before it goes up another 100-fold. And then God willing, that's the chain reaction. That's when the fusion reactor goes online. That's when it becomes profitable. So that's where I kind of am now.
Have you focused on the revenue? And in other words, I think there's only 2 ways that I know of. Well, there's probably 3 or 4, but 2 main ways is either people pay directly or ads, or a hybrid, I guess. But I really just consider those 2. You can also do, if you're going to have people pay, it could be either subscription or it could be pay per episode, which isn't totally really around yet, because you need to charge less for the episode than you think. But from my perspective, you might be just in the right time, because what I'm seeing is that there's this thing called microtransactions, which in the past would not have worked, because Visa is going to charge you 30 cents for every transaction. So what if 100,000 people listen to this episode and you charge a dime? Well, that's $10,000, right? I mean, that's enough. You get a couple episodes, you get 5 or 6 episodes a year, and you got a full-time salary, not to mention all the other episodes you're doing. So if 5 or 6 of them can do 100,000 views at a dime, which is like tossing them a thing in a fountain, right? I mean, when I used to go to the malls, the fountain was filled with coins. There's more dimes in there than there is, if you get 100,000 dimes, it's $10,000. So, but if Visa takes 30 cents, you're minus 20 cents. So it's not possible. So how do you get it so that one person in Alaska can download your episode, watch it for 10 cents? Maybe it costs you 2 cents to stream that to them, so you make 8 cents. I don't know, plus your time and effort. But you're going to make 8 cents, and that could be profitable for you, and could end up making you $8,000. But Visa's like, sorry, every transaction's 30 cents. So the guy in Alaska needs to pay the 30 cents and just give up on that business model. So go find yourself some advertisers, or go get yourself a lot of subscriptions. And those can work. But I think for something like your Robert Malone video, if that got like 1 million views at a dime, well, there's $100,000. So, and a dime is nothing. And if it's ad free, I'd pay a dime for any half hour you give me without ads, and everything, anything on TV, any movie, anything you want to give me, I pay a dime that second. If you start off the thing with like, hey, pay a dime and no ads, I'm on board, right? And most people, I think, would be, especially as they get used to it. So this is the revolution, I think, that you're probably about to get into with interviews with like Kurt and Frederick and myself. And this whole thing is basically a movement from advertising model to subscription model like Netflix and Spotify. And then we're going to go into this last 20-year phase of the internet where everything's monetized by pennies. And if you think about music, for instance, or Spotify, since any podcaster is familiar with Spotify, forgetting about the podcasting part, if you think about music, I listen to music maybe, I'm going to say 3 days a year, because I'm a podcasting listening to fiend, right? Yeah. If it's like music in my car ride or a podcast, I'm like, hey, I can learn something.
I always go for the learning something. Yeah.
Always go for the learning. And there's a lot of people like us. And frankly, they're probably in a very good demographic too. They got money to spend, so a dime's nothing to them. And if you say, well, but you still listen to music 3 days a year, but you just don't want to pay $20 a month for all you can eat subscription for those 3 days where it's like a party, Christmas, whatever. What if you just charge me a penny for every damn song I listen to?
Yeah.
If at the end of the year, that comes to $12. That's $12 that a music company has that they never would have had, because I don't subscribe to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's either you extract $12 from me for my 3 days worth of music listening per year, which
Or
is probably,
nothing.
or you get nothing. And that's called this long tail effect. And that long tail ends up being probably as big as the current music industry. In other words, there's more of me than there is like crazy music listeners. And when you put us all together and it's a billion of us, we equal a pretty big business.
Mm.
And I think in podcasting, it's the same thing. It's like, well, I already know I don't even probably have enough time to listen to all 895 your episodes. If I love your podcast, I might, and you're my number one podcast. But what if I'm just like, this guy has had like 25 amazing guests,
Yeah.
and I pay you a dime for all those? Well, you only make 250, but there's a lot of me, right? There's a lot of me that are just going to pick and choose. And so, and of course, as you move down the line, you're going to get better guests. So it's going to go from 25 to 50 to maybe all 895, right?
Yeah.
So my point is just this model of collecting small amounts of fees is actually ginormously big, right? It's like I said, the 10 million views for, a top podcast times a dime is $1 million.
Mm.
It's a lot of money. And 100 million views is, sorry, 10 million views. That's what, 10, that's like 2.5% of, or no, so that's sort of less than 10% of American households.
Mm.
So if you're nationally popular, you're going to kill it, right? When you get some of these mega podcasts like you're talking about, where you have Joe Rogan plus other mega stars,
Yeah.
and what do you have Elon on the other day? I mean, 50 million people are going to listen to that.
Yeah.
And he could probably charge $1 for that. That's
Yeah.
50 million bucks. So I don't know what Joe Rogan's contract says, but I mean, I would say that 50 million listeners for a big pod times $1. I mean, I don't know that he's making even that much money. I'm sure he's pretty close, but that's just one podcast for like 2 hours. And then he's going to do, 52 other ones if he does one a week. So I just think there's this huge 20-year trend of microtransactions, of things that are like $3 and less,
Yeah.
all the way down to like a tenth of a penny. And I think this very small community that you're just starting to tap into is starting to make the tools and the infrastructure to support this. And it's very nascent. We're talking like year one. So if we're in like year 10 of podcasting, we're in like year 2 of this microtransaction environment.
Mm.
I'm really excited by it, which is probably why I'm here, because I'm associated with your previous guest and everything. But I think it actually plays in pretty well to podcasting. But there is going to be this moment where people are going to have to choose, because if you already have a business and you're getting subscriptions and ads, it's like the old parable of the rich man. You're not going to throw away your riches to go do the new thing. But if you're still working on a revenue model and you haven't solidified it yet, I think there's going to be some really special options coming in the next. Well, there already is some now. They're not fully developed yet. But I think over the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see something emerge where you can kind of, for pennies, pay for podcasts, and guys who are on the other end collecting that and doing the pods can start making a living
Yeah.
in a really nice way.
Yeah. And as anyone that watches this podcast knows, about an hour and I always use the restroom. So Jack, I'm going to ask you to monologue
Yeah.
for 30 seconds while I use the restroom.
All right.
to comment on where'd he go? Comment on all that. So YouTube had a rule where if you had 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours within 1 year, you get monetized. You got to 5,000 subscribers and like 20,000 watch hours, and they never monetized me and then just booted me. So that sucked. But Spotify, I think they pay me like a penny per 10 views, maybe somewhere in between, like 5. So the first I started putting it up on Spotify in April 2020. In the first year, I think I made like $5 in the
$5.
from April 2020 to or it's from April 2021 to April 2022. I made like 500, and it's going up at that clip. My first year on Rumble, I think I made like 50 cents.
You want me to blow your mind right now?
In the second year of Rumble, I made $470. So it's going up exponentially.
I'm gonna blow your mind right now.
All right.
I have a podcast called Diamonds in the Rough. It's an investing podcast. It's solely focused on talking about potential investments, both public and private. That's our theme. We're finding diamonds in the rough for investment. Now a lot of it's Bitcoin related just because that's what I'm into right now. And we made the decision we could do this on YouTube or we could do this with Bitcoin BSV, which is probably the smallest still viable cryptocurrency there is. It's barely in the top 50. When we put our pods out, I think we've done maybe a little bit under 20 of them. And we made, I think, about $2,000.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to blow your socks off even worse with this stat. I think our best pod got about 75 listens.
Jeez. What am I doing?
So I'll tell you this. I'm going to give you the Jesus and the rich man moment, right? I love using the Bible because I had to be a Catholic for about 12 or 24 years or something. So I got all these things in my head and I've always been wondering, what am I going to do with this? So there's this old parable where the rich man sees that Jesus has this amazing ministry and everybody loves him and he's got thousands of followers and he's feeding everybody with the bread, the loaves and the fishes and everything. He's like, damn, this guy can talk, man. He inspires me. So he comes up to Jesus. He's like, what can I do, man? How do I sign up for this? I want to follow you. And Jesus is like, oh, no problem. Just give up all of your wealth. Because Jesus sees immediately, guy's got rings and necklaces. He's all decked out like, he's on Fifth Avenue or something. And Jesus already knows what's going to happen. But the rich man's just like, oh, dude, anything but that.
Yeah.
Right. And this is an old, ancient, like basically Jewish story that Jesus is retelling and recreating. But the point of the story is if you're rich in one thing, you're probably not going to like destroy it. Basically what he's doing is it's the story of the innovator's dilemma. So if you read the book, The Innovator's Dilemma, it says like, oh, you're Microsoft, you make all your money from X, but everybody else now is doing Y. And all the people doing Y are like 19 and 20 years old. And as they get older, they're going to keep doing Y. They're never going to be doing X. So are you either going to go over to Y now and shatter your current business model and go into the new thing, but it's going to hurt? Or are you going to stay in the old thing and you're going to die off slowly? You'll make tons of money, but you'll die off slowly. It's an age-old choice that every human being kind of has to make and probably will make at some point in their life. And for you, I think this choice is going to be, I'm making money. By the time you have this choice and there's a viable option, you're going to be like, well, I could switch over, but I'm going to lose a lot of my customers because they're going to be like, I don't want to download a wallet. I don't want to. And the funny thing is that hurdle is so small. And yet compared to like what I went through just to get on the internet, period, if I describe that story to you, you'd be like, oh, you waited 3 weeks for a disc to arrive in the mail. And then you had to like spend an hour and a half online with some human being in like Pakistan to try and get these little tiny numbers written in proper. I mean, the whole thing was absurd, right? But we always had a motivation. You were like, oh, I'm going to I can bet on a basketball game for 50 cents, instead of paying this weird college bookie like $15 every bet I make, which can get kind of expensive.
Yeah.
Or, God knows what. Everybody got online for a different reason. When you were my age, right? You didn't, I was in the top 1%. I felt late, but there was a reason why you got on and you overcame that hurdle. And if you're building a business, and you already are going like Joe Rogan, that dude's never going to be doing microtransactions, right? He's already making a crap ton of money.
Yeah.
And maybe somewhere in the middle, that guy probably won't either. But these young podcasters, they're going to find their way. It's like, like these current people on TikTok, they're making tons of money. They weren't making anything in the beginning, right? They were just doing it for fun, or they just thought it was cool, or maybe they thought it would amount to something. But the point is, it's much easier for someone who has a clean slate to get into the new thing than it is for an old person or a person who's already established themselves. And I think this thing I'm talking about is not really ready for podcasts yet, unless you have the endurance to make it through and to coach people into this payment system. But I tell you, it's an amazing system, because we were charging everything from a dime all the way up to, I think our most expensive podcast was $16 for just one listen. That's more than basically the movies get.
Mm.
And we were doing 2-hour long podcasts on average. And, my partner ended up having a baby. So we lost our Saturday mornings, and by the way, we were only doing like one every 2 weeks. So we made $2,000, and that was with, a little bit of focus on marketing. But as I said, we only had like a couple dozen listens, or 3 or 4 dozen listens per podcast. But if you build that business up, and yes, you do have to sign someone up to a wallet, which is a pain in the ass. But if you build that business up, or on the flip side, the community just gets big in the next 3 years, then you don't have to worry about it. It's an amazing thing. It really is. This tiny amount of money times a lot of people is a revolution waiting to happen. It's almost democratic. Like, one person can capture a crazy moment, and you know how that goes viral, and you'll never do it again, right? You caught, a dog defending a duck against a hawk or something, right?
Yeah.
You'll never see that again, but it gets like 3 million views. And if you got a dime for that, you get $300,000.
Yeah.
And it's this app store model as well, where all these companies are taking like 10, 20, 30, 40%, not 80% like Spotify's doing to you, I'm guessing. So it's this reverse model where the platform makes the minority amount of money and the creator makes the maximum, right?
Mm.
And that's this beautiful thing. And that's what we're all trying to do, I think, in this community. And the world doesn't see it yet. And it may not for a while. It'll like you said, it's sort of growing, which is encouraging. But I think it's going to come down to who can endure long enough for it to get big enough where you're like, oh, okay, I'm set now. Like, I'm making money. I know the money's going to get bigger next year, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm rolling now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been a weird, early on not getting monetized by YouTube. That sucked. Reaching out to advertisers, that never amounted over like 2 years. It just cut your losses. Merch, because before I started the podcast, when I moved home for 3 years, I taught myself graphic design. There's another thing I did. It took 3 years, self-taught. Just started making these awesome psychedelic pieces, which I still love. Some people bought some like clothes with them, stickers, whatever. But after 2 years, I mean, just the monthly like cost of just running an online store, even with no inventory, it just wasn't amounting. So I was like, I still like it, and I'd still like to resurrect it one day. But like, okay, pause. Just keep moving forward, find the things that are working. So the Rumble and the Spotify are going up exponentially. So far, they're going up about 100 a year, or I mean, no, like 1,000 a year, 1,000-fold a year, and they're on track to do it again. All right.
By the way, do you do Apple podcasts?
iTunes won't even let me on.
Why?
Dr. Malone COVID misinformation.
Oh, Jesus.
It's so there's another things, and then you got this. That's a whole other dynamic of like, well, how much do you want the money? Just shut up and stop talking about these topics. Versus like, I'm not going to sit in front of an American flag and be like, well, we can't talk about that. That's misinformation. I'd rather be dead. So there's also this whole like, where do you stand on like your own morals, and can you look yourself in the mirror? Um, so with like Spotify, like you can get more ads if you allow them to like insert it. They call it like mid roll, but I hate that. I
Oh.
absolutely hate that when you listen to a podcast, you're an hour in, and then it's like Chobani flips, and you're like, "The fuck is this?" It completely. It's why a movie is so much better than like a show on. Or it's why a movie just on your phone is so much better than like a movie on TV because you're watching it. Oh my god, what's happening? And then it's like the new Ford. What? And you're like, what? You completely just ripped me out of the moment, right? So I only select the pre-roll ones. I don't want to ruin it because I personally I love podcasts, I love audiobooks. I hate ads. So I'm like and not even that I hate ads. I just don't rip me out in the middle. Play 10 minutes ads at the beginning. I don't give a shit. Just not in the middle. So I do that. One thing I started like a month ago was so I started Patreon because I love Tim Dillon. He's a comedian. I listen to him every day. He's funny. I listen to audiobooks in the morning to learn. And I listen to Tim Dillon in the afternoon because it makes me laugh. And I have been for like 3 years. If you go back and listen to when he started, he's just living a life of horror. He's like, he's living in like a 50 square foot apartment in like, Brooklyn with like no air conditioning and just screaming at the microphone. And now he's the highest paid person on Patreon. I think he makes like 250,000 a month, and he has been for like 2 years.
His name is Tim Dillon, and he's like a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, I honestly think he's the funniest person alive. He's brilliant. He's like 5 years older than me, and he'd been doing these podcasts. And after he did like 300, he got a break. He got on Rogan, and that's just he went like viral. But instead of being a flash in the pan, people discovered, oh, it wasn't just like a piece of ice; it was an iceberg. They found this funny guy, and then they found, oh, he's got 1,000 episodes. Every week he puts one out on YouTube. Every week he puts one out on Patreon. YouTube's the free sample; it gets you addicted. Patreon's $5 a month. He's making 250 grand a month. He's rich as fuck now. I look at that and I'm like, okay, I could do that. There's also I I don't know, maybe it's not confidence, maybe it's self-deprecation. I'd like to think it's humility. I don't think I'm offering a Tim Dillon product yet. I don't think it's heroin where you can't go without it. And I feel that the podcast is still too small that if I start paywalling things, I'll make some money. But then I look at Rogan, who never paywalled anything. I started listening to Rogan in December 2011, about 6 months after he started the podcast. So I watched the entire thing grow. He never paywalled it. Never pay, even on Spotify. You can skip the ads. You don't have to buy premium. So I'm looking at like Tim Dillon, who's making what 3 million a year. That's cool. And then I'm looking at Rogan, who signed a $200 million contract for 4 years. And I'm like, okay, I could like get bronze or I could get gold. And I'm looking at it like, well, I'm in it for the long run. And as someone that grew up with LimeWire and Napster, I'm like, there's no such thing as like a true paywall. If you want it, you're gonna get it. And so I'm looking at it like I think I just need to do the biggest possible, almost like pollen effect, where you just throw it everywhere and eventually it will catch somewhere. If you know it's good, if you're gonna keep working, all the endurance, all the courage, all the stuff we talked about earlier. So I put out a Patreon like a month ago, and I was like, I'm not gonna put out exclusive content, but I was like, if you enjoy this, and I made like a $1 tier. I made a bunch of other tiers. There's a couple people that pay like $5, $50, but the majority are $1 a month. It's not much, but in a month, it's gone from nothing a month to like $200 a month. And I'm like, okay. And you can drop it at any time. I'm never gonna paywall it. But if you like the podcast, and if $1 is nothing to you, I mean, I don't have a lot of money, and I pay Tim Dillon $5 a month because I'm like, I'd pay it even if it wasn't paywalled. I was like, I just genuinely think he's the funniest guy alive. So right now I'm like dancing with that. So there's this Spotify. It's kind of trickling in, right? $5 or whatever it is, or 5 cents, whatever it was. Now it's like 500. Rumble was like whatever it was, and now it's been like 500 in the last year. They're going up exponentially. I can hope the Patreon goes up exponentially. And then something else happens with these platforms is the bigger you get, your CPM, your how much you get per 1,000 views starts to go up. So as your total view count and subscriber count starts going through the roof, you also, instead of making a penny per 10 views, now you make a penny a view. Now
Right.
you make a nickel a view,
Yeah, they're giving you basically they're going, well, when you start, we're giving you 0.
giving you
Then
shit.
then you hit your wall, you hit the first wall that you climb over, then we're gonna give you 10%.
Yeah.
And then like by the time you get to Joe Rogan, maybe you get 80.
Yeah. Or God willing, you just give them a contract.
Yeah, yeah. But what my point is they're making you jump through hoops.
Mm.
Which is, they can do that because they've got the distribution. But honestly, what distribution do they really have? Because Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram, TikTok, they're all the same. Like you're swimming in a sea of content that's
Yeah.
only getting bigger because there's 8 billion people in the world and they're not even all online yet.
Yeah.
So like they're all and then they're contributing more and more of their life onto the screen. So the content's just getting absurd, right? So I think the funny thing is that they're making you go through all these hoops, which is this endurance concept that we've been talking about. But yet you're getting screwed in the beginning. Whereas the thing I'm talking about, the other side was taking 20%. And I think I was given 10% for links. So if you link my podcast to your buddy and your buddy ends up pressing the buy button, then the link person gets 10% of the podcast. So they might get a dime every time that happens. It seems like nothing, but just for telling somebody about a podcast where you normally get 0, you're at least incentivized a little bit and you can make a little money doing it. So there's all these little weird incentives in it as well. But I would say that since we don't have a lot of time, if I was you, here's what I would do. Ours are on Streamanity, right? STREAM, Streamanity, like humanity, but with a stream. Now the guy running it's not really putting a lot of effort in. He's focused on other stuff. So it's not really an improving site, but you can use it as just a platform to do your accounting for you, right? To collect the money and distribute it to you. And, we give 1% of our podcast to the musicians who give us the music for our opening theme and all this stuff. And there's 8 ways a Sunday to do that. You can do, if your podcast is edited, you can give your editor 5% or 10% or something. And it all happens automatically. You don't have to do anything. So that's kind of cool. Now, there's not a lot of traffic on Streamanity, right? We're talking a few hundred people. So what it really ends up being is you're the marketing and you go, hey, if you want to watch episode 899, we're going to put it here. And I know it's a pain in the ass. You're going to have to get yourself a button or a wallet or whatever. But if you want to watch it. So what I would do is if I was you is I would take 10% of your inventory. So 89 episodes. And I would even make the test the least watched episodes you have. Take the bottom 10%. I would wipe them from every platform that they're on, because if they're on a platform already, nobody's an idiot, right? Like, so we don't put our stuff on YouTube because it's like, well, if you're on YouTube, what the hell am I going to pay you for? I'm going to pay you $2.
Yeah.
It's an episode I can see for free on YouTube. So you got to eliminate the other instances of the thing. That's why I'm saying experiment with your worst content, right? Take 89 episodes, stick it on to either Serenity. There's actually another platform. I don't know if the guy's still running it, but it was purely podcasts. We actually did an interview on him and we never got it edited. So we still have the episode. We probably need to post it. And I'm not so sure he stuck with it. So I don't know if he's still around, but his was more audio only. Whereas Streamanity is video plus the audio. And I think both are valid, right? Because when you're in the car, you don't want to have your phone video
burning through data.
Yeah, you're burning your data and you're burning your battery. So it's costly. So there is room for both. But I would say take 10% of your episodes, start putting them on these things, and then spend 30 minutes a week building up a direct response marketing for those episodes. Just be like, go to your $1 patrons, or go to somebody who's just like, look, we're taking 10% of our episodes and putting them here, and we're going to charge 49 cents per watch, right? And if you build that up, I bet you over time, by the time you get to your end run, you probably be making more money with your worst content than you will with your best content on these other platforms, because A, you're making 80%, B, you're building up a following. And I would even make it a different following. I would target the BSV community. You get on this thing called Twitch, you get another one called Lament. There's a couple of like kind of social platforms where you actually get paid to post your content there too. But you'll start discovering that there's a whole community that's growing, that's willing to pay, and they're used to paying 40 cents or $2 for content. And you'll get a little bit of revenue from just that community that has nothing to do with all the people you have now. And that's what I would do. I would run it as an experiment and set up a whole other spreadsheet and just be like, what can I do with my worst episode? And just take your worst episode, put it up on this platform, and spend a half an hour marketing it to these certain people and I'll help you. I'll be like, hey, this guy's new to the community. He wants to, watch his episode. Put your worst one up there and maybe only make $7. But what's how many is 10,000 views on YouTube before you were shut down? How much were they paying?
I never made anything on YouTube.
Okay. On
right now, if I get
Spotify, what's 10,000 views on Spotify?
Well, it's it's not a penny each, because a penny would be what, $100? It's not that. It's probably $10.
Shit. I mean,
10,000.
This is a layup for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you put you know what I'll do? I'll say, put this episode on Streamanity. I'll help you market it to the people who watched our podcast, because we haven't done one in, I think, January or something was the last one we put out. And you'll make more money from 20 views than you will for a 10,000 view episode on Spotify.
I'll think about it. I might. You've got my. If you told me to take like my best ones with Dr. Malone or
No.
Delta Force guys, I'd be like, go shit in your hat. Like, no, those are doing fine how they are.
Well, the funny thing is, our podcast is number 2 on Streamanity all time, or maybe number 3. But there's the 2 people that are ahead of us. One, I think both are inactive now, but the one who was inactive even when we started doing it interviewed Satoshi Nakamoto once.
Well, I thought nobody knows who he is.
Well, our community knows who he is.
Bullshit.
Well, that's my point. This lady, she's a nice looking Asian lady who's no longer in the ecosystem anymore. She interviewed Satoshi Nakamoto once in 2019 or 18 or something. It keeps getting watched, and she charged $3 an episode, and she made $3,000, and it's still the number 1 video on the platform. Occasionally, people watch it again, but it's the only place you can see that particular interview from 2018, which is a pretty early interview for him. And it's amazing. Like, she's still the number 1 revenue person on the platform, and she's done 1 podcast.
So who's Satoshi Nakamoto?
Dr. Craig Stephen Wright of Australia.
Well, wouldn't that be? I mean, I don't know. I know that you're an expert in this, and I don't know shit about crypto. Wouldn't that be? Because Friedrich brought that up. That's his postulation. But wouldn't that be
like there yet? We talk, and he's not there yet. But
wouldn't that be a definitive thing? Wouldn't that be like? That'd be like Willy Wonka, like releasing the golden ticket. That's like finding Bin Laden, right? That would reach it to plebs like me if it was Satoshi Nakamoto, for sure.
Well, you're lucky, because I spent 3 years trying to deal with people not understanding it. He's dealt with more like 7, if not 12, and half of our ecosystem's in longer than me, at least. So they've been dealing with it for even longer. But you hit the perfect time to be asking this question, because there's a court case in Norway starting on September 12th, I believe, that literally is the court case to answer this question. So by the end of this month, if you follow this case and watch the evidence and the trial is literally, Craig, are you or are you not Satoshi? And if you are, you win the case. And if you are not, you lose the case.
Can you get me Craig?
Can I get you on the podcast, on your podcast?
Could you get me him?
I couldn't get it, but you could get it, no problem.
How would
all you have to do is submit the questions you want to ask, and you'll get an hour with Craig.
I want him to come on and definitively say he's Satoshi Nakamoto. If I could get that podcast, I'll put all 895 episodes on Streamanity. If I got the admittance of I am, like at the end of Iron Man.
You're a little late on that, by the way, because he's already admitted it. But
I want it like new. So I had on Dr. Malone last July, and I had Dr. McCullough last July. I had them each on July, August, September. I interviewed him each 3 times. Got banned. Nobody gave a shit. And then they went on Rogan, and he got some great PR. The White House, the CDC, WHO. They're like, this guy's a Nazi. This guy's and his viewership doubled.
Right.
I didn't get to see a penny of that. I had him on first. Rogan got the death threats, not me. Because with the death threats came a huge uptick in viewership. So I don't want I had him on first. I want like the end of Iron Man when Robert Downey Jr. is like, I am Iron Man. I want him to come on and it definitively be Satoshi. I don't want to I'm kind of Satoshi. I don't want to, I want, because I feel like I would know. That would be like when Bin Laden was killed. It was just everyone knew, even if you had no idea of what the United States was. Everyone knew Bin Laden was killed. I feel like you'd see a meme on Instagram or on Reddit or Discord that he is definitively, because wouldn't he also be like the richest guy in the world? I'm not trying to shoot you. I'm not trying to shoot you down. I'm hesitant of believing he is definitively Satoshi.
You're not alone. You're in the massive majority. What I would tell you is he's already definitively said it for a long time now, like years at this point. If you had him on and he raised his right hand and said, God strike me down, and here's some, which he probably wouldn't do it that way, but even if he did, nobody would care. It'd be like your Dr. Malone episode all over again. Now,
gotcha.
If you release this right at the time of this court case being judged, the jury, I don't know if it's jury or judge, but the result's going to happen in, I don't know, 3-4 weeks. So if you were to post your episode right after that, when everybody's kind of interested, you'd probably get a decent amount of views, just timing wise. But I think the question's going to be answered in court. So, and he knows that. He's the one that is saying that. He's basically saying, I can say it until I'm blue in the face on any podcast you want. I could do it on Joe Rogan and nobody's going to believe me. But if I'm in court and we have to submit evidence and bring people in to solemnly swear, like, hey, on my reputation in 2008, I was working with this guy and he was talking about Bitcoin. I mean, sure, I guess, people are going to say, oh, you paid him off or whatever, but most people won't give up their whole life to make up some bullshit.
They don't want to make up an affidavit. That's no good.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're going to see guys that have real resumes that have stuff to lose if they lie in court, and they're going to be in court in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, telling people what they think.
Side note, what would be the actual implications of this? Would it be other than verification? Would it kind of be like, all right, like what would be the actual implications of him definitively would it be a meme for a couple of weeks and then go away, or would it shift the crypto market?
I think we already know, because in December he won his case against Ira Kleiman, which is the brother of his best friend, who sued him for the Satoshi coins. Basically, like you were saying, they were worth something like $60 billion in November, around the time of the case. And so it was basically the largest private civil suit in United States history, measured by dollar amount. I think they were suing for more than the 30 billion. They were suing for something like 300 billion. When you add up all the, there's penalties in courts where if, you do $3 million of damage, they'll want 9 million.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was for something like $300 billion, which is the size of like Facebook.
Yeah.
So or Meta, sorry. Um,
How dare you?
yeah, and that's a huge amount, right? So that was a big case, and he won it. And it wasn't that a ton of people were all like, "Oh, well, he's Satoshi, so that makes sense." But there was like maybe 1% that were like, "Oh, well, I paid attention to this trial. I looked at the stuff, and this matches everything I would think. This guy's Satoshi." And the funny thing is, it's very important people that are now acknowledging it. So, like for instance, there's a guy who runs the IPv6 forum. He's a super nerd, right? I mean, he's the kind of guy who gets into the nuts and bolts of how the internet works
Sure.
and how the addresses are going to be issued in the future and all this like stuff that no one cares about, like super nerd, but a powerful super nerd. And now he's got like, I think there was supposed to be in October an interview with Vint Cerf, who's basically literally the inventor of IPv1, which is the first version of the internet, with a guy named Dr. Hughes in the 70s, I think, and Craig sitting in the same panel live at this geeky tech conference. I don't know if that's still going down, but just the fact that even if it was scheduled to go down as Vint Cerf and Dr. Craig Wright together on the same floor, you know, people are starting to acknowledge already, and very important, influential people. So I think there's an army of angry people who are trying to protect their business models because they sell nonsense and they're, you know, pumping coins and all that like bullshit.
Yeah.
It's about to start slowly going away. The fraudy part of crypto, which is like 99% of it right now, is about to go away. And that 1% kernel that's doing things that we just talked about, like, hey, what if you could get 10 cents for a million views? That part's growing. And the 99 is going to go to 0 and the 1's going to go to 100. And that's probably going to take 5 or 10 years. But that's a lot of growth, right? That's like in year 2, your podcast should be making money to the point where you don't have to ask for investors anymore, right? By year 5, you're making 250,000 a year. And that other guy, if he's smart, gets on board, he's making 2.5 million a year. And it just goes from there. And if you're enduring long enough and your podcast is awesome and you stick to it, I think you'll be making tons of money. So my point is just that there's this whole story that I've already seen happen in .com crash, .com bubble, .com crash. What comes out of the crash? Like 2 or 3 or 4, a handful of really strong companies that we now know and love today as
Sure.
trillion-dollar companies. And right now, those trillion-dollar companies in Bitcoin are like million-dollar companies or 100,000, or just a garage band that hasn't even like started yet.
Gotcha.
And so I think there's a big future here. But for you, I think the cool thing is you could probably go down this rabbit hole with a good 10 or 20 episodes if you're going down the right route, and you'll actually start to learn about this ecosystem, and then you'll be able to take advantage of it with the podcast. And that's what I think is super cool. And I'm not trying to sell you anything, right?
Oh, dude, you're good.
I'm about to put out my own podcast and wait for my editor to get it done. It's called a deflationary collapse-isode. And it's about how deflation precedes hyperinflation. Everybody thinks hyperinflation is about to happen, but every hyperinflation is preceded by a deflationary collapse and sometimes a full-on world war, like in World War I. So there's this progression of things that has to happen before hyperinflation, and nobody seems to understand it. And so we did an episode on what we think is going to really happen, and we'll release that, and we'll probably charge at first at like a very small amount, dime, 20 cents, 40 cents, and then we'll actually increase the price. And then the guys who watch it first get to watch the whole thing for maybe 20 cents. And then when they send it to their friend, maybe the episode's $1 or $2. So they actually end up watching for free. So there's a whole other like model that you can do with the marketing and everything. But the point is, I'm practicing what I'm preaching because I really believe in it.
Sure.
And I just think this model of 1 million times 10 cents is a real thing.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Just experiment with your worst episode.
No, I mean that's a strong pitch. Take your worst ones. Like, you know, all right, that's a unique pitch. That's you sound confident. That makes me believe it a little more. And I know we haven't got into it all, like your history, which was supposed to be this podcast. But as I told you the other day, there's a good chance we'll go completely off into the weeds, which we did. So as we got 15 more minutes, let's just kind of keep going off into the weeds, and then we'll schedule one where we actually go into your field of expertise.
Sure.
So knowing what you know about me, the hour and a half we've talked today, the 20 minutes we talked the other day, and assuming I'm telling you the truth about like what I've done and patterns and blah blah blah, all that kind of face value shit. What would be your advice for me going forward? Right? I love the podcast, but I'm also not a hippie with my head in the clouds. I know that I have to pay rent, gas, health insurance, food. I know the podcast has to make money, but you also don't want to sell your soul and just become a corporate shill. So for anybody listening that doesn't like how focused I am on money, I have to. I'm in a 700 square foot apartment. I need to keep going forward. With all that being taken into consideration, it's also my passion, endurance, blah 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 blah. What would be your advice for me now, or even if not advice, with your elder sage pattern recognition wisdom, what would you think I should be expecting or be preparing for in the next stage of whatever this is?
Phew. Um,
So advice or a heads up.
well, I think the best advice I could give you, I already have, which is one, and I think you've already got it. Just expect more of the same, which is you have already rigged your sails for survival. You're living below your means. It's like the number one key to success is work hard, live below your means. I mean, that's it, man. You do that, the world's your oyster.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, if you get in a jam, you can make a decision, right? Because you've saved up some money. You can go, is this podcast working? Is it not? Do I need to do something else? But at least you've got some time to survive and make decisions. If you don't have anything, then you're always scrambling, and then life gets pretty rough in terms of your, especially we were talking all this
Mental
depression and
health,
stuff.
suicide
Yeah,
stuff.
your
Yeah.
mental health is, it's key to have a certain stability in your life. Um, and I think, if you're living below your means and and working hard at the thing you're trying to do that can make you money, I think you'll find success eventually. Um, and then I think the second piece of advice, and I think you're already doing that, so there's no really advice there, but just continue surviving. And you already gave the example, right? Your comedian guy was a nobody, and one day Joe Rogan picks him up, or it didn't even have to be Joe Rogan; it could be the number like 110th podcaster to pick them up, and that's where he got his success from. So, and then the second part was my advice: just start, trying this other thing with Bitcoin micropayments. Maybe it amounts to nothing, but I think the one nice thing versus say Patreon is it's very similar, but instead of like, yeah, all right, you throw me into Patreon, it's like, oh, $1 a month's like $12, $10 a month's like 120. Like, it's not that that's a lot of money. That's an easy decision. The problem is you go $10 a month, like I can get Hulu for that. Like
Yeah.
like every piece of content Hulu's ever done in their life, and that's like 80 years worth of content. So, why would I be paying this kid like, $10 a month for that when I can get Hulu? So that's kind of the decisions that people go through their mind when they say no.
Yeah.
When you say it's wham bam, thank you, ma'am, 20 cents, nobody's going to say no to that. They're like, I mean, like you could put in there like ad free podcast about something, and someone is going to be like, it's 20 cents. Let me give it a shot. Right. I mean, it's literally throwing money in the fountain. It's carefree, like, okay, whatever. 20 cents, I'll do it. And then, oh, by the way, if I like it and link it to somebody else and he raises the price to 50 cents, I get my money back in like two of my friends also watching it, which is another amazing thing. And I don't think this humanity is going to be the only platform. I think there's going to be someone come along and take this really seriously and figure this whole model out. And if they don't, I'm going to do it. So they better figure it out, because I think it's going to be a big market. But my point is just it isn't just that, just you're already doing this too, because you're already on 6 different channels and you're trying to figure out if Spotify is better than YouTube, is better than Rumble, or whatever the other one was called. So you're already doing all that. You're taking all the stats down. So it'll take you 2 seconds. If you were disorganized and I said, put your 10% of your worst podcasts up there, 90 podcasts, if you were disorganized, you'd be like, oh, I wonder what that is. But you got a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
So like you could do that. You don't, that's time saved. You've already nailed that. So then you just go and experiment with the direct marketing thing. It's like, go on a new social media site, which is, maybe a Twitch or Lament. And by the way, Lament is this brand new thing that's coming out like in the next week. And their whole motif is do whatever you do on Twitter, Instagram, Spotify, but direct people to us and we'll charge them for the content that you're putting up. Now, I don't think they do video yet. I don't even think they do audio. Mainly it's like pictures, and they're very OnlyFans based, not in the porn way, but just like, you got a yoga, something business and you want to show people certain things. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't really know. But what I'm saying is try a couple new avenues where it's like an experiment. And it's like, hey, maybe there's something better out there where I can grow with it. And it, by the time a year comes up, maybe you'll be, I made $2,000. So like, it's not a lot of money. It's nothing, but I'm also I got other things to do. I didn't have time to do it. So I'm one of those podcasters that's basically falling off the wagon, but you're not. So you're going to think about this every day and be like, how do I build up this business? And such that same thing you're doing now, which is, I made 50 cents last year, $50 this year. Hopefully it's 5,000 next year. That whole progression is the same in this new world, but at least you're getting paid instantly and you know exactly what you're getting. There's no like guessing what percentage Spotify keeps, and they give you these sales goals like you're working at Prudential Insurance or something. So that's the other piece of advice, is not only just Bitcoin or BSV, try those out, but try other things. Obviously, there's stuff I don't know about. And then the last piece, I guess, I think we talked about this before, which wasn't recorded. And I think you're already doing this too, which is just, bring people in closer by giving certain people access to your innermost thoughts. Usually that person ends up being your wife at the end, but, it can be your best friend for now. Usually when you're single, it's your best friend, but somebody's got to know you really well to the point where they know the bad stuff, the good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. And it's not easy to do for a dude, believe me. Like it's the most counterintuitive thing to spill to somebody, but
vulnerability and removing the facade of being a man. Yeah.
But of your 10 friends, one of them probably is the dude that will listen to you. Like that. What's that movie? It's the guy, both Vince Vaughn in his best movie, Swingers.
Wedding Crashers or Swingers? I haven't seen Swingers.
Oh, it's the best. One of my favorite, top 5 favorite movies. But it's really his movie about friendship. And the irony is that the guy who's down because his girlfriend left him or whatever, and he's this budding sort of comedian writer, it's really his own story kind of. And Vince Vaughn plays, one of his friends. And his Vince Vaughn seems like his best friend, but he's really not. There's the other guy who's also famous now. He's the guy from Office Space. What's his name?
Office Space, or who's the guy in Office Space?
The main character in Office.
Yeah, is that Luke Wilson?
No. But you know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it's not Luke Wilson. I always get the mess. Yeah, So if
I'm totally blanking, but it's the main guy. Yeah, if that dude plays his best friend, and like he's like sunken into his apartment. He's got his, he just can't take life anymore because whatever happened the night before just like ruined him. and his buddy just walks in with a sandwich and a Gatorade or something, right? Like, and he spills his guts, and all of a sudden they're playing golf an hour later, and he's totally revived.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think, the last piece of advice, which is, have that cohort or that colleague or that person that really knows you well to the point where they know they don't even have to ask how you're doing. They just look at you and go, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it
I've
could be your
definitely,
parents, right? I mean, I think your parents are another great candidate for this. But
yeah.
most people don't want to tell them anything either.
I after moving home because I was suicidal and going through therapy, it kind of all barriers between what I told my parents dropped. I talk to my mom every night. I text my dad all the time. Yeah, they're after losing a brother to suicide, kind of uh what word am I looking for? All taboos or hesitancy kind of falls away within the family. You really can't get much more personal than that. Um, I did definitely do have a smaller circle of people that I talk to, but I also try to do it on the podcast. For me, it's like not even the whole money and grow. It's for me, it's like a spiritual thing. Like move forward and like, can you open up about the horrors of losing a sibling or being there yourself or being fearful that a friend is going down that path or I've tried to do that on the podcast as well because you don't want it to all be, COVID news or Delta Force, because that's the one. What do we all have in common? Is we're all fighting the battle of our lives every day, and our lives are very dramatic and intimate. So it can't all be like, do you think the virus was created in a Wuhan lab? Sometimes it's like, you ever get so fucking depressed, you just want to die? Like, yeah, 9 out of 10 people are like, hey, I've been there. I was there yesterday, right?
Right.
It's so I do try to do that as well. And
People
that'll
love that, right? I mean, that's what made Howard Stern famous, is not that he's a total jackass all the time, which he is, and a
yeah.
funny one at that, but just that he opened up his entire
Yeah.
life to the point of embarrassment for his
Yeah.
wife and his kids and everybody else, who probably are still paying the price for that. But
Yeah.
that's what brought people in. They're like, "Oh, this guy talks about national stuff, makes fun and everything," but when he opens up, it's kind of what drew people in.
Well, it's because the one thing everyone can if Rogan goes on and starts talking about how hard it is being a celebrity, everyone's like, I don't fucking know what that means. But if he's just like, I've just been so depressed lately, everyone is like, go on. Like,
All right, yeah.
me too. Do you think life is an eternal hell? Like, so do I. Like, so that is one thing and you can also kind of that allows you to connect with guests better, who maybe the original talk was about satellites. I found that those are the best episodes. You'll start with what nuclear submarines, and if halfway through you start talking about depression and suicidal thoughts, it'll actually kind of pull back around to the original topic. And then
Yeah.
the person's just they're so open now because you talked about this harrowing thing. They'll start opening up about like just goofy shit that happened on the sub instead of like nuclear warheads and sonar. It's like, oh yeah, dude. One time I walked in on my buddy jerking off near a torpedo tube, and it's like, oh, sorry, are you? I don't know if you got people around you. Give me a bad face. Sorry, sorry. I apologize. That was
No,
me.
it's okay. She's a 3-year-old, so she doesn't know what we're saying anymore.
Oh God Almighty. Well, there's the evidence for me to go to jail. But yeah. But Jack, I'm gonna send you a text. Let's get another one on the books and actually talk
Sure.
about whatever it is what we're gonna talk about. You're an easy guy to talk to, man. I thoroughly do appreciate that. Um,
Well, by the way, I tell you what, we'll bring this full circle by saying, I think the last piece of advice is what everybody tells you over and over again, especially the successful ones, which is just do what you love. And for me, submarines was not it. I thought it
mm,
was cool. It's very James Bondy kind of a job for a little while, but running a nuclear plant and shooting torpedoes just wasn't my thing. And then I went into a business that was a lot closer to my thing, which was investing. I was a hedge fund analyst analyzing technology, which I love, and that got really close and was super lucrative. But now I think I'm really in the thing that I love doing, which is creating something like a business and a product and several products, we hope, that the old adage change the world, but I think we're just designing a better widget and something that people will use for thousands of years. And I think it's so cool that I wake up pretty excited every day. And it obviously, like everybody else, I have lows, but that last sentence you said, which was, life is, what did you say? Was life is miserable or something like
Miserable,
that?
unending hell, or eternal hell, or whatever.
It's an
Yeah.
eternal hell. I don't think that at all.
Oh
I
no,
think,
I'm not. I used to think that. I
yeah,
love it
yeah,
now.
yeah. I think it's the total opposite. I think, in between these moments, there's some living hell moments. But if you're pursuing what you love, they become, these eternal hell things become speed bumps.
Yes.
And your eyes, and they say this in the Marines, the 1,000-mile stare.
1,000 yard stare.
1,000-yard stare. Your vision
Mhm.
is looking at that goal or where the world's going, right? Gretzky was looking where the puck was going, not
Larry
where the puck
Bird.
is.
Yeah.
And once you have that vision and you're skating towards where the puck's going, the guy in front of you, the crash,
It all opens
photograph of your
up.
brother, it's all has to be dealt with for sure. But it becomes noise on this greater path. And I think that's that religious experience that everybody wants, that's almost closer to religion than it is career or family or anything else. It's just this religious experience of, I'm heading towards something great. So
And with that, let's put a pin in that and let's
yeah.
pick up with right there because I have a lot to talk about with that. Um, Jack, thank you so much, dude. Text me whatever links you want me to put in the description. I'll put it in the description. And let's schedule it today. Let's put another one on the calendar. And I'd love to talk to you, man. You're a cool dude.
Well, thank you. Same to you.
Thank you
Looking
so
forward to the
much.
next one.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so